think it was a couple of weeks ago, somebody asked me if I had a round to it. Have you ever heard of that? Yeah. I'm missing mine, but eventually I'll get around to it. And that's kind of, yeah, should I wait or should I just keep moving on? Should I just keep going? I don't let that one sit out there too long. I wonder what it is that we feel a sense of urgency about. What is it that kind of makes us get energized, get excited, or get concerned about things in us, in our world, in our own lives? Because the call of Jesus that we hear about in this morning's reading from the gospel is clearly about a sense of having urgency, about responding to the call, about not waiting until it's convenient or things work out or when you're in a better position, but now, in our lives of faith, what is God calling us to do? How is God calling us to be? What is the relationship that God has established with us and continues to sustain with us? What does that relationship gives us a sense of urgency about? So that we can be active and proactive in our world and in our own lives. What do you feel a sense of urgency about? Maybe it's personal health concerns. Maybe it's a family member, a friend, or a neighbor who's in particularly difficult circumstances. Maybe it's the situation in the world around us and any of the different aspects that presents itself to us. But I think what these call stories that we hear from Jesus this morning remind us of is that to any of those moments of urgency, we need to marry that with our faith. It's one thing to be proactive on behalf of others, but it's a totally different thing to be proactive, to be concerned for others in terms of our faith in a way that sees our place in its proper perspective and then allows God to take the lead for us so that we're following God where God is directing us. I did a wedding on Friday night for the chief of the Pleasantville Volunteer Fire Department. Very happy for Stefan and Caitlin as they begin their married life together. And I was hanging out with a bunch of the firefighters who know that Marion and I are relocating. And one of them said, "Look, Pastor Paul, if there's anything you need, anything at all, just let me know." So I texted him and I said, "I need help." And he texted me back, "Thoughts and prayers." And I texted him back, "Wise guy." Thoughts and prayers are an important starting point, but not an ending point. To be compassionate to people, to put that compassion on the ground in the way that we live, in the things that we do, in our advocacy work for others is absolutely critical. Thoughts and prayers are important, but we cannot end our walk of faith there. We must not only bring our heart to these situations, but also our own presence to situations where there's a sense of urgency, a sense of need, a sense that we can be constructive and helpful in those situations. That's your call, by the way. I suppose you feel a sense of urgency most days, but you can handle it because you're experienced parents. And you're doing a great job. Has anybody told you that recently? You can take that home with you, okay? You're doing a great job. You have two beautiful children and they look very happy. Thank you. But as Charlotte and Genevieve continue to grow, you're going to have to kind of go with those changes, right? It's easy now. It's going to be as easy as you want it to be. Because the love that you're already giving these two beautiful children, the legacy that you're sharing with them, is going to help them to be formed into beautiful, more beautiful, wonderful human beings, children of God. But you need an example, right? So you're called to be the example for them. You're called to be the ones who remind them that God is in their lives. By the way that you behave and the way that you interact with one another, these two beautiful girls are going to learn what it means to be loved and to love. And they're not going to do that without example, just as you guys didn't do that without your own examples in your lives who have taught you what that meant. And you guys too, by the way. That's what you're signing up for. So that you can be for Genevieve an example of God's presence in her life. so that you can be one who reminds her that she is precious and loved. And I know that's why you're here today. I know that you're fully committed to that, and that's wonderful. We need those examples. People who have gone before us, who remind us of what it means to be children of God, to be human beings, to be loved, to be cared for, and to share that love and that care with other people. And I'm sure that as I say that, you're thinking of so many people in your lives. I hope you can conjure up images of them who have been examples to you, who have been the incarnate love of God for you, so that you might share that love with other people. In a way, it's kind of like the Elisha story. We heard as Paul read that passage from 1 Kings to us that Elijah is worn out with being the prophet. And so he takes off his cloak at God's direction and he gives it to Elisha, who will be his successor. This is where we get the phrase passing the mantle or inheriting the mantle. It's the cloak that Elijah wore. And because Elijah can't do that job anymore because he's done, he passes the mantle to Elisha. And then later on in their experiences together, Elijah is going to be swept up into the heavens. And as he goes, his cloak will fall. And Elisha will pick it up and become the premier prophet in Israel in Elijah's place. I want to suggest to you all today that you are those who inherit the mantle, who wear that responsibility, who are called to exercise leadership and discipleship in the world around us, to be those who set a different example of what it means to be in community, to those who understand that nobody is outside the influence of God's love and presence. In other words, to remember your baptism and the commission that you received here to live your life as God's children. From this beginning, our journey becomes so important and so urgent. In this water, you or your parents and your sponsors, your godparents, answered Jesus' call. Come and follow me. No excuses. The wonderful thing about that call is that we get to do it while we're doing everything else, right? So we do our jobs, and we do them in harmony and cooperation with God. We engage in relationships with our family members and friends, and we do that in harmony and cooperation with God. We participate as citizens in the world, and we do that in harmony and cooperation with God. All that we do as disciples, as followers, as baptized children of God is done at our best in harmony and cooperation with God. And therefore, God finds this entry place into the world through you. And we have the examples. But the mantle is on our shoulders. God has called us to be faithful in our time, to be bold, and to bring to that walk of discipleship a sense of urgency, of meaning and purpose. Because in this time, for this place, for our world, we are those who have inherited the mantle. So let's follow the example of Genevieve in her childlike trust that she is loved by God and has an opportunity to bring joy into the world. She's doing a great job. So are you. Keep it up. Amen.